My name is Mark Estrada, Markestrada. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in Lockhart Independent School District.
Gotcha. So my question was regarding the new law that passed, regarding no cell phones in school, and how Lockhart ISD is navigating it with parents and students for the upcoming school year.
So when we received news that the state of Texas and the state legislature was banning cell phone use during the school day, we began communicating with our parents what that meant here in Lockhart, and really trying to communicate what that means for kids and how it was different from previous years. So we've done a video, we've done a letter, we've emailed this information, texted it to parents, and really social media, every communication channel that we have available. We're trying to communicate that with our parents before school begins in a couple of weeks.
And because this is
One second, let me fix your jacket for you.
No, thank you.
Have a look.
okay. And because this is a law that you guys have to implement, I mean, how are you guys going to navigate it here? So when kids come to school come August 13th, what's going to be different? Are they going to be, checking in phones, or is it just more so, hey, put your phones away, we don't want to see it?
So in Lockhart, kids will, once the school day starts, the first bell, will be required to have their phones put away either in their pocket, their backpack, and for it to be turned off for the entirety of the school day. I also want to say that for us in Lockhart, we've had a similar policy for a number of years at our junior high school. So this will not be new at our junior high school. The only thing that'll be new for us at the high school will be during lunch period. So that will be a much different thing. So what we're trying to do is provide things for kids to do during lunch, since it will be different. We're getting different types of games they can do, different types of activities that they can do with each other to communicate and spend time with their friends without the distraction of a phone.
I know you mentioned junior high, you had a similar policy, but not in high school, but you did say the lunch hour was the only difference.
Correct.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So at our junior high school, we serve grades 6 through 8. We've already had this policy, so kids are not allowed to have a phone at any point in the school day, not allowed to have it turned on. So that's not a new thing for us. We've been doing that for a number of years. At our Pride High School, which is a smaller high school, school of choice, we actually have students turn in their phones at the beginning of the day, and we've been doing that for a couple years very successfully. And at Lockhart High School, so phones have not been allowed during the instructional day except for lunch. So really the big change will be that lunchtime, which will be a big change for kids. Typically that's the time that they're able to check in, check the notifications, do all the things that kids do these days with cell phones.
You mentioned at Pride High School that they check in the phones, so I guess you're not doing that at Lockhart High. Why?
We're not doing that at Lockhart High. We're not checking in phones at Lockhart High because just the scale is different. We have well over 2,000 kids at Lockhart High compared to 60 or 70 kids at Pride High School. So it works differently. The Pride High School policy has worked out great. Kids have reported being able to focus, being able to be engaged, being able to be present during their conversations with people. And at Lockhart High School, just the number of students, we haven't tried it there.
Gotcha. And what are the implications if someone is seen with a cell phone once the school year starts, consequences and punishments of sorts?
Sure. So our campus administrators are expected to implement progressive discipline. Of course, we, at the beginning, we want to ensure that kids understand the expectations, they understand the law, the rule. Kids will have the opportunity to get their phone back at the end of the school day. Parents will have to come pick up the phone after the first offense. Kids will have Saturday school, detention, those types of things, and progressively it could lead to more serious consequences for that persistent misbehavior if it were to continue.
That's just kind of like a first, second, third offense type deal.
Correct. Correct. And the administrators, they'll have to use their best judgment and kind of work up that progressive discipline ladder.
Gotcha. And because this is something that you said is not typically new because you did it in junior high and you have it kind of enforced at Pride High School, even though it is a smaller scale. How are you navigating like parents, you know, when they're like, I would need to check in with my kid, like we need to be in contact. Like, how do you navigate that?
So all of our classrooms have phones in case the parent needs to get a message to a student. They can call the front office or relay that message to a student. Something that I've talked to a lot of parents about is the concern of what about a worst case scenario crisis or situation. Our teachers will follow their training for emergency responses, and if it doesn't create a situation that it's even more unsafe to allow kids to use their phone, then they'll use their logic and reasoning to allow kids to message their parents, let them know they're okay, let them know something in a worst case scenario. Yeah, we're not going to keep kids from communicating with their parents if it's safe to do so in a safety situation.
So that was one of my questions, like, you know, obviously we're in this climate where we're seeing, you know, a lot of mass shootings in schools. So in that type of example, they'd be allowed to just grab their phones and check in, is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we want for the phone to stay in the possession of the student so that they have that level of comfort that they always have their phone. They can turn it on in the case of a real emergency or a serious emergency, as long as it's safe. You know, there may be some situations to where it may create more of a danger if people are calling on their phones in some safety situations, but as long as they feel that they can do that safely, then sure the teacher will be able to allow them.
Is there any challenges or changes that you're going to have to implement or do when it comes to the new school year, even though this is something that you've done before, you're not unfamiliar with it, but is there anything you guys are looking into, like, we probably have to change this and do this differently?
Yeah, I think one of the things, the law says that it's not just cell phones. You know, the law says, for example, laptops, computers that kids maybe were bringing to school to use, that is no longer allowed. Kids will have to use school district issued laptops, which we have, and every kid will be issued one. But that'll be a new part of this, because the law is pretty clear that it's not just cell phones, it's other devices that have the ability to communicate and get online and things.
Gotcha. So let's say if they have does every student have a issued?
They do.
Gotcha. So if they wanted to be like, hey, I want to like jump in and email my parent or jump on a social media page, I mean, how do you guys navigate that?
Sure. So our school district devices are managed. You know, it has filters, it has, you know, things that will block content and web pages that are not appropriate for school, that aren't relevant for schoolwork. So kids will be able to use their devices, though certainly email, those types of things are available to kids.
Gotcha. And as the superintendent who oversees all these kids, I mean, what do you think the pros and cons are of this?
I think that during the school day, if we can get kids to focus on learning and being present with their peers, I think that's a good thing. I think that we're seeing, and I understand why the law was created, we're seeing the effects that social media is having on students, the effects that just constant access to the World Wide Web is having on kids these days. And so I understand the intent behind the legislation, and we will do everything to try to be in compliance with it in Lockhart ISD.
Gotcha. Do you see any cons to this at all?
I think that some of the cons may be, I think that there's an appropriate time and place for technology. I think that we're going to work through how do we effectively use technology to help kids learn, and I think that you know, that there's some learning that we're going to have to do. You know, teachers were very used to having kids use their cell phone for things, and some of it small things. You know, using it for timers, using it to look at something quickly. If a school issued device battery was needing to be charged, and you know, like some of those little things, I think it's forcing us to be to prepare for those things. So we have extra devices in classrooms, have extra chargers, those types of things that we know are going to come up during the school year.
Gotcha. And what message do you have for, parents and kids as they adjust this new change, aside from, first day jitters and just, starting the new school year?
Yeah, I think that, for our students, I was just talking to a group of kids last night at the soccer field, and really kids, they come to school to learn, and you have to be focused and present to learn. And I think that that's the intent of the law, and we want to try to utilize every minute that we have instructionally for kids to ensure that they're getting the academic content that they need, that they're getting the enrichment that they need, and potentially this bill allows us to do that.
Is there anything else you want to add, or anything I didn't ask you just about this new ban? Anything that anything I missed at all?
Yeah, I think that this new law, I hope across the state, will create and start a conversation amongst parents and also schools about what, especially cell phones, social media, etc. Is it harming our kids? Is it helping our kids? Is it useful for them? How much time are kids engaging on these types of platforms? How much time are they spending on their phones? I hope that it'll start that conversation across communities in the state, because I think it's a needed conversation that could help our kids develop into healthier adults.